Welcome to this broadcast of topics on Southern Mongolian human rights, brought to you by the Southern Mongolian Human Rights Information Center. Today I have a little bit of news on Hada, Xinna, and Uiles. Let me start with a little background information. In December 1996, after a year in custody and after intense interrogation, Hada was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Some of these crimes were conspiracy of overthrowing the government, splitting the country, providing information to the enemy, and organizing an anti-revolutionary clique. None of these supposed crimes would stand legal challenge in any country where the rule of law prevails. Hada was thrown in prison and the bookstore he ran with his wife, Xinna, was closed. Xinna was left destitute to raise their son, Uiles. Throughout the 15 years, Xinna bravely stood by her husband and sought legal remedies to have him released from his incarceration. Xinna herself was jailed in a vicious attempt by Chinese authorities to silence her. However, that never dampened her resolve or determination to see her husband freed from an unjust prison term. Hada was subjected to beatings and torture while in prison in an attempt to force him to reform his views and turn his back on his previous positions on human rights for the Mongolian people of southern Inner Mongolia. Despite this abuse at the hands of the Chinese Communist Party thugs, Hada has steadfastly refused to recant any of his positions. The price he has paid for adhering to his principles has been heavy. His health has deteriorated as a result of the medical complications resulting from his internment and physical abuse, the loss of more than 16 years through incarceration, seeing his family in prison and prevented from leading a normal life. In December 2010, just before Hada was to be released, both his wife Xinna and son Uiles were arrested on trumped-up charges and taken into custody. When it came time for Hada to be released from his unjust confinement and mistreatment after 15 years, the Chinese authorities placed him under indefinite custody, along with his wife and son. Subsequent news indicated that the authorities permitted a family reunion and were prepared to release them from custody if they signed papers confessing their guilt and promising to remain quiet. The authorities also reportedly offered them the opportunity to leave the country and seek asylum elsewhere. However, these offers were refused. As a result of their refusal to cooperate, Hada, Xinna, and Uiles remained under the tight control of the Chinese authorities in an effort to keep them silent. The same tactic used against so many other defenders of human rights in China. Most recently, we saw headlines attesting to these tactics with the escape of Chen Guangchen and his wife from China. The Chinese authorities' treatment of Hada is no different. In fact, one could argue that they're worse. The latest news from southern Mongolia concerning Hada is from a relative that was allowed to meet with him in April. Hada related that he was being sent to a luxury resort. In addition to the self-identified doctor and nurse that escorted Hada, more than 8 other armed individuals provided security, while the on-the-scene medical staff monitor Hada's health during their lunchtime meeting. After 17 years incarceration by the Chinese government authorities, Hada's health has declined considerably while in the custody of the state. Hada suffers from multiple illnesses, including chronic leg pain, back problems, stomach ache, and deteriorating vision. Hada also related that he continues to reject the Chinese government's attempts to silence him. He plans on suing the local authorities and security apparatus after being released. But the authorities are insisting that he sign a paper to admit his wrongdoing before he is freed. The Chinese government used torture to compel him, as well as arresting and detaining his family members to compel him to sign. The latest attempt have the authorities offering high-paying jobs, luxury accommodations, and expensive cars to sign the paper. Hada remains adamant that he has done nothing wrong and has nothing to admit. What we are seeing is a government intent on breaking a man of his principles. The use of the term luxury resort to refer to a prison compound is not totally without sarcasm. Imagine yourself in luxury surroundings without being able to see family or friends, to know that your loved ones are under constant surveillance and being continually harassed by the authorities, to know that there is nothing you can do to help them were something to arise. You can put gold paint on feces, but it is still feces. The Southern Mongolian Human Rights Information Center has learned that Xinna, Hada's wife, has been released from Inner Mongolia No. 1 detention center in April, and now lives under house arrest with her son in their bookstore's rented warehouse in Hada. Since the Chinese government confiscated their home, the warehouse is the only home they have. This is an example of how punishment is meted out in China. Not only is the accused punished, but the entire family is made to share in the punishment as well. Is this what a rapidly emerging modern China considers progress? Xinna has also vowed to raise the issue of her unlawful detention of over 15 months. She will also appeal her closed court convictions on charges of engaging in illegal business. Xinna was also offered a high-paying job, luxury accommodations, and expensive cars to sign her papers and keep quiet. But she also refused and remains subject to continued harassment from the authorities. Uiles was also offered luxury bribes, including a beautiful girlfriend, but he chose to respect his parents and work to save his cultural heritage. On May 10th, it marked the one-year anniversary of the tragic death of Mergen at the hands of a cold-hearted, coal-hauling truck driver. To recount, Mergen was attempting to stop a convoy of coal-hauling trucks that were driving through the grazing lands. In addition to the destruction of the grasslands from the 100-ton trucks, the herders' animals were also being indiscriminately killed. After Mergen was run over by the first truck and subsequently dragged for 150 yards, the truck driver was heard to say, "Killing a Mongol at most will cost us 400,000 RMB, and our boss has plenty of it." Conditions for herders have not improved, as evidenced by the brutal beatings of more than 20 Mongolian herders when they attempted to stop the appropriation of their land. In July 2011, reports from southern Mongolia state that men armed with sticks and bulldozers attempted to take away grazing lands from the local herders, and that more than 20 had to be hospitalized for serious injuries. The thugs killed all their livestock as well. It is difficult to comprehend how a government that aspires to greatness in the 21st century could ignore such basic human rights. Punish a man for 17 years for his supposed crimes, and punish his entire family in a vain attempt to force a confession. The government of China must understand that Hada is a man of principle, and he's prepared to die for it. The fact that the government of China fails to recognize this merely points to the lack of any principle by them beyond the pursuit of the dollar. Please take the time to visit our sample letter page to find out how to contact your U.S. elected officials and inform them of the continued deterioration of human rights in southern Mongolia. This is also an opportunity to ask the U.S. government to express concerns about the continued detention of Hada, Xinna, and Uiles with the People's Republic of China. A handwritten letter to your elected representative means more than 100 emails. So please, Use your rights to send a letter today and help change the situation in occupied southern Mongolia. The URL for that sample letter is http://smhric.tv/sample letter, all one word. Thank you for taking the time to become informed about topics in Southern Mongolian human rights. Thanks for watching.